Hello, my beautiful friends, our Dr. Humans, and welcome back to another episode of The Potty, which is a gift to you today. We're giving you a little sneak peek, a little glimpse inside Dare Darling, which is our group coaching program for doctors who feel never enough, where I transform you into a doctor who is unshakable. Now, as a part of that, as a part of the system that we use to make you unshakable, we do quarterly immersives in Dear Darling, which is essentially a course, right? There's a 4-week video course accompanied by coaching to make sure you actually can implement and know where and how to effectively, impactfully implement that theory and these tools and strategies into your life to make a difference. Because I found it's just not enough to teach. That's why I'm so passionate about coaching. Coaching is the thing that helps you implement the work to actually see results in your life. I don't want more education in so many parts of my life. I want the execution, the integration of all of this incredible knowledge that is already available to me, and all the things that I already know in myself will make a big difference if I just do it. Have you ever said the phrase, I know what to do. I know what to do. I'm just not doing it. That's what coaching's for, right? Because if you say that you know what to do and yet you're not doing it, there is a gap there that needs to be filled, and coaching can fill that gap. So these immersives are highly impactful. We as a group all focus on the same coaching topics in our weekly coaching. So that not only means that you get to focus your attention, your effort in one area, but you also get to watch as other people bring their examples that prompt and inspire and challenge you. So you can see lots of different ways that this work really applies and all the amazing things that other people are creating with this work. So it truly is an immersive experience. This immersive for June is Stable in Uncertainty. It's followed our first immersive, which was Overcome Your Insecurity. And our next immersive upcoming is Being Unaffected by Others. These are all key ingredients to making you unshakable. This is core curriculum that I want you to learn. And I want you guys to learn it too. So I pieced together 2 short videos on being stable in uncertainty. One that shows you why it's so important for doctors to do this work on being stable in uncertainty. And secondly, we're going to flow straight onto a concept I've developed that helps you understand why your brain grabs at uncertainty, even at your detriment, even at a cost to you. And this is a concept called the Shaw scale. It is so important that you understand the tricks and traps of your mind, why your mind does what it does, what biases your mind has, how it tries to help you, but it actually hurts you, because you need to break these cycles. If you want to be stable in uncertainty, you need to be able to see and break this cycle for yourself. No one else can do it for you. So if you know that being unshakable is a critical ingredient in you being able to be the kind of person you want to be, to live the life you want to live, stick around for this podcast episode. Oh, and as usual for Am I Doing It Wrong? This is a video podcast. And in particular, in this episode, you're going to find lots of extra useful graphics that help the concepts sink in. I always do this inside Dare Darling to facilitate learning. So if you can, watch the video version of this episode and get a little extra boost. Welcome to week 1 of our immersive in Dare Darling. Stable in uncertainty. That's you. We are going to make you stable in uncertainty, which for some of you guys at this point, with the way that you think about uncertainty in the world, you might feel that that is impossible. And with that, on that note, I fully expect to blow your minds with this work on uncertainty. We're going to be breaking some common illusions for all humans and release your resistance to the reality of the world. You can really start living, and with that, not just living and experiencing life truly as it is, but performing better because of that. For doctors, in just the professional context, a place that uncertainty occupies a lot of brain space for us is in the fear or constant threat or risk of making a medical error, harming a patient, being sued, or medical malpractice cases. As a doctor, as a healthcare professional, you have accepted a career that contains a great amount of uncertainty and adversity. Fact. Medical errors happen. This is the opening line of a piece of medical literature on emergency physicians facing life-changing stress. Few practicing emergency physicians will avoid life-changing stresses such as a medical error, personal illness, malpractice litigation, or death of a patient. I'm going to put some amazing resources, including papers and TED Talks down below on medical errors and the challenges we all face as a normal thing in the life of a doctor. Some stats on medical errors. Medical errors have been reported as the third leading cause of death in the US. One study reported approximately 400,000 hospitalized patients experienced preventable harm each year. And instantly, you might already be feeling anxious about the risks involved and thinking about how you're going to better yourself and improve yourself and fix yourself, become more competent clinically to avoid these. But we have other research that shows, and this data was from neurology patients, I believe, that showed that yes, with experience and seniority in medicine, the amount of medical errors do decrease that are related to the clinician's fund of knowledge. But even senior experienced clinicians weren't exempt or protected from making medical errors despite their great levels of knowledge and experience and skill. Errors, for example, in diagnostic reasoning. So not related to knowledge, but errors that occur due to human error, due to the limitations of our human cognition. And not only that, but numerous other factors related to the environments within which we work. But my point is here, as a doctor, you cannot escape risk and uncertainty in your professional life and as a human living in this world. You cannot escape risk and uncertainty in life. And that is why it is so worth doing this work on uncertainty. It's not only going to improve your professional life and professional performance, but it is going to apply to and improve all aspects of your life, because all aspects of your life involve risk and uncertainty. Moreover, the way that we currently respond to uncertainty is dysfunctional and maladaptive. It weakens us. It is a detriment to our performance and therefore our outcomes and our decision making. By the end of this immersive, you are going to be so much better placed to not only create the outcomes that you want in your life, but also to experience life and the reality of the world without unnecessary suffering and stress and anxiety that we believe comes part and parcel with uncertainty. It does not have to be the case. It is not the case. Uncertainty does not automatically equate to stress and anxiety. And we'll talk more about that, don't worry, if that doesn't sit quite right with you right now. But a big part of coaching and why coaching is so impactful and why it works so well is it's really about making sure we're telling the truth to ourselves. The truth will set you free, they say. But the truth here, more strategically, more pragmatically, better positions you to make decisions in your life. And it better positions you to not create problems or anxiety or stress out of things that are simply truths of the world, not necessarily problems of the world or a sign that something is going wrong in your life or in your world. Uncertainty and certainty is a place that a lot of us accidentally, innocently deceive ourselves, right? We don't tell ourselves the truth about the certainty and uncertainty in our lives, and that comes at great cost. And over the next few weeks in this course, we are going to find the truth, reconnect with the truth about uncertainty, about these negative, undesired outcomes that we're trying to avoid, right? Because uncertainty is not usually a problem if we're uncertain about a range of positive outcomes. It's generally related to perceived, anticipated negative outcomes. And the truth about stress and worry. And with all of this, we're going to be better positioned to not only make better decisions for ourselves and perform better in uncertainty, but we're also going to have more peace in our lives, and we're going to remove unnecessary suffering and the dysfunction and the self-sabotage that comes with not meeting the truth about uncertainty and reality, the world in general. So are you ready for that? Let's go. All right, my beautiful friends, if you know you need to do this work on being stable in uncertainty, this next video is going to show you one of the tricks and traps of the mind, one of the cycles that you need to be able to break free of having a bad relationship with uncertainty and to become unshakable, the sure scale. If you already know that you want to be in this group of bold, audacious, humble, and hungry, impressive doctors in Dear Darling, then my consults are now open for you to come along, spend an hour with me at no cost, and we're going to sit down and work out together if Dear Darling is the right place for you. With that, I ask you about where you are now versus where you want to be. And from that information, I can help show you how we would change your life with coaching. Then you get to decide if coaching and Dear Darling is right for you. Also helps me to see if you are the right fit for us in Dear Darling, because this is an incredibly special, powerful, sacred place. And I'm only accepting women in medicine who are absolute assets to our other members too. So we cannot wait to meet you. This group is magic. Today's video is for you if you are somebody who finds themselves often wanting to believe the worst. Now, this can look like counting yourself out of opportunities because you're self-rejecting in advance. It can look like self-deprecating as you walk into the room or as somebody presents some kind of opinion of you that has some level of regard in it. It can look like lowering both other people's and your own expectations of yourself. Despite the fact that you have this track record of being a person who is highly competent and highly capable. And perhaps that's why these people seem to have these high expectations of and high regard for you. And yet, despite all that optimism from the external perspective, you can't seem to get on board with that level of optimism. And instead, you keep finding your mind takes you to wanting to believe the worst and think about the worst. Let me help you understand why your brain does this so that you can break this cycle. Now, immediately, in the immediate term, you might not feel like there's a problem here. You might find your self-deprecation and your self-rejection humbling and charming in that way. You might think of it as a virtuous trait. But I want you to ask why you don't treat your loved ones with the same level of self-deprecation, disrespect, and underestimating. You actually know that these behaviors, this pessimism towards a person's capabilities and self-value aren't actually helpful in life. And instead, I want you to see, and this is one of the core parts of the transformation I want to create for my members in Dear Darling, I want you to see how this kind of thinking keeps your life small. It makes you feel smart and it makes you feel safe in the short term, in the immediate situation, but it keeps your life small. And I just want to make sure that you're giving yourself the opportunity to decide on purpose how you want to treat yourself, and therefore what opportunities you want to give to yourself in life. So let's talk about it. So to understand what seems paradoxical in terms of how we would want to treat ourselves, this kind of self-deprecation and self-respect, this thinking the worst about ourselves and thinking the worst about what's possible for us and what's available to us in the world, I've developed this concept of the sure scale. So this is a scale from 1 to 5 in terms of how sure your thinking and therefore your feeling is when it comes to our brain choosing what it wants to think, subconsciously, of course. Because recognizing the quality of our thoughts in this way, this dimension of how our thoughts feel in terms of a lack of certainty and control as a 0 on the sure scale to a 5 out of 5 level of certainty and control
on the Shaw scale. Recognizing how just this dimension of our thoughts makes us feel differently helps us understand why we might choose to think negative thoughts. Because as you sit and ask yourself the question, why would I be thinking about the worst case scenario? And this Shaw scale that I've developed is something that I've created to help explain to my clients that we don't just think thoughts because they're true. That's not how our mind decides which thoughts to offer us. And this is a really foreign concept because the default operation of our mind is that our mind produces a thought and we assume by default that that thought is true. Our brain doesn't select which thoughts to think or which thoughts to believe based on what is true or even based on what is smart, but actually first subconsciously based on how those thoughts feel. We are always, as humans, wanting to feel better. And one of the things that makes us as humans feel terrible is uncertainty and a lack of control. Thoughts that make you feel uncertain and like you don't have control as a human. And thoughts that make us feel relatively better are more certain thoughts that give us the ultimately illusion of having control. And with that, we can be motivated to think thoughts that are not only not true, but that limit our opportunities in life. You know, like a thought like, oh, that's not possible. When you're thinking about a dream or an amazing goal that you have, or maybe that it's possible that you have some positive trait about yourself in the instance of a compliment. In so many cases, instead of sitting in the uncertainty of, oh, I wonder if that's true. I don't know if that's true. It's possible that it's true. I don't know. We would rather move ourselves up the Shaw scale to a thought like, no, that's not possible for me. Not because it's a positive, happy thought or a thought that creates amazing opportunities, but because it feels sure. It feels certain. It gets rid of the uncertainty and even some aspects of the lack of control, because when we feel like we understand the world, we feel more control. We think that therefore we know what's going to happen tomorrow, this year, in the next moment, when we believe we understand the world and we have certainty. So simply understanding this dimension of thoughts, this quality of our thoughts, our perception of the world that we can consider, and how important it is for humans, for our sense of safety, for our sense of certainty and control in our human lives, which are ultimately fragile, mortal, and uncertain. Just understanding this desire for and drive towards feeling that certainty and sense of control can help us understand why our mind might produce thoughts that aren't truly useful for us and aren't truly moving us towards our goals. Why does our brain choose to feel fear and anxiety so much of the time? Why does it reach for that? Well, because that moves us up on this Shaw scale. If we take down here as a 0, feeling powerless, feeling overwhelmed, because we're thinking things like, everything is uncertain, and with that I have no control and I don't know where to look, I'm overwhelmed. Whereas notice how anxiety and fear can feel a little bit better than powerlessness. Whether it's because the anxiety or the fear has us start to fixate on and form an image of the future of what's possible, as opposed to going from, I don't know, everything's up in the air, everything's uncertain and nothing's in my control. The anxiety and the fear can start to focus us and start to form some kind of tangible image of the future for us. And mistakenly, the thinking worry, the doing something in the worrying about this future can mistakenly feel productive to us. It can feel like we're doing something. You know, contrast that with not feeling stressed or anxious in the situation. Well, most people would feel even worse sitting back and thinking that they're, quote, doing nothing. They feel better about thinking more about what might go wrong because they believe that that thinking is doing something and somehow preparing them, which is sometimes the case, but on balance, it's more often just an illusion of control. So I just want you to consider in your life if the reason that you're indulging in so much anxiety and fear is actually because it's making you feel a bit better than being low on this sure scale, feeling that powerlessness and that overwhelm. Your fear and anxiety, your stress, doctors will often try and justify to me how their stress is so useful, but actually it just feels better than what you're trying to avoid, which is that awful, terrible, powerless or overwhelmed emotional state. Now, notice how a further step up on the sure scale is deciding that you know what's going to happen, right? Moving from fear and anxiety to certainty, right? And as much as you might resist that outcome, as much as you might not want it to be true, that worst thing is true about you or about the situation. When your mind takes you to that place of this is true, this is what's real, this is going to happen, this is for sure. I'm not a good doctor. I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna make a mistake. This isn't gonna work. This is impossible. As negative as those thoughts are, and as much as they're associated with other negative emotions, on the sure scale, they move you from anxiety and fear to certainty. And even with the resistance to those negative outcomes, there comes this sense of calmness with the certainty about the future and the sense of control that gives you. Working with a surgeon, we were looking into why she seems to have this habit of walking into the operating theatre and lowering everybody's expectations of her. She's greeted with excitement and joy to see her by her team because that's the kind of surgeon she is. And they're talking about how hard the case is and about how she's going to do well. There was some kind of invitation to talk about how the case was going to be difficult and about how they were glad she was here. And her automatic reaction, this was a pattern she said for herself, was to lower everybody's expectations. And I called this the humility shield, because where she didn't feel certain that she could meet their expectations in that operation, she didn't feel certain that she was truly a good surgeon, a great surgeon. That question and that expectation created some uncertainty and anxiety for her. It created this opportunity for her to not meet those expectations. And as positive as those thoughts were, that her team believed in her and she was seen as a good surgeon, the uncertainty that created in her was uncomfortable. And so she moved herself up the sure scale into they're wrong about me. And from that place, she lowered everybody's expectations so that she didn't feel like she had anywhere to fall. She could feel certain that she could meet the expectations that she set for other people about her being a very average surgeon. It can feel better to feel certain about what's true than to sit in the possibility of something good. I just posted a video on Instagram about this in sort of bigger, broader terms in life. Follow me on Instagram if you're not already, Dr. Beck, spell out DOCTOR_Beck, BECC. That's where I put up most of my videos and where most people message me. So I put out this video talking about how I get rewarded in my life for sitting in what's possible, sitting even in a place where other people think that's not possible, right? They move themselves up the sure scale and think the thought, that's not possible. It gives them this sense of certainty, right? You get to feel smart, you get to feel sure, you get to feel comfortable in that decision that this isn't possible. End of story, book closed. I don't have to sit in wondering anymore. But the cost of that is, of course, that they shut themselves out of opportunities. I am willing to sit lower on the sure scale. I'm willing to sit in possibility. And with that, I'm willing to be wrong. Right? I'm willing to make mistakes. I'm willing to fall on my face. I'm willing to, quote, look stupid. I'm willing to have to revise myself and change my beliefs and change my plans and change my thoughts. I'm willing to do all of that for the exchange of being able to create something incredible, right? Something that other people don't think is possible. Something that incites that level of anxiety that makes people think, oh, maybe we can't do that. Maybe that's not going to work out. By resisting elevating myself into that place of certainty and by instead being willing to sit in uncertainty, I open my life up to more possibilities and recognizing that a part of what makes me want to say that something's not possible, say that something's not realistic or reasonable is just because it makes me feel safe, right? On a more superficial level, it makes me feel smart and reasonable and realistic. But all of that just means the same thing. It just means safe. It just means I'm not risking somebody thinking that I'm not smart or not reasonable or not realistic. I don't care about that stuff, I realized, and the feeling of safety that that gives me, as much as I care about living my life in the most expansive, explorative, and highly impactful, highly contributing way. And this is my invitation for you to sit back and decide for yourself. What would you rather? What is your pick? Recognizing that a lot of the time we can ourselves out of opportunities and we put on our humility shield and we lower everybody's expectations. We lower our expectations of ourselves and we self-reject in advance because we'd rather feel sure than feel uncertain. And I just want to emphasize with this concept of the sure scale, this is just about how you feel. Just because you think you're sure, just because you feel that you're sure, that doesn't actually mean that it's sure. Our brain is selecting these thoughts based on how they make us feel, not based on what is true.
There it is, my beautiful friends. I hope you found this a little bit world-shaking, a little bit exciting, as our members have said after our first week of this work in Dare Darling. And remember, if you would like to come and join us, have the opportunity to join us, my consult calendar is down below. Free 1-hour sessions for us to sit together and work out how can we help you. Is Dare Darling the right place for you? Just spending this time with me, just spending this hour block with me will be incredibly high yield for you, even if you don't sign up for Dare Darling. We're going to take a bird's eye look at your life. We're going to focus in on what matters. And with this, I get to essentially diagnose and prescribe how we would help you with mindset coaching, what you need to see change, and what, if not changed, is going to continue to hold you back. Links down below. It is an honor to have you join us, and we'll be back with Christine next week.